When you think about Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, what comes to mind? Is it the water or the trumpets? It's probably those, but how many of you thought about its world design or its technical advancements? The Hoenn region was crafted in such a way so that you could traverse the entire region without one loading screen. Unless absolutely necessary, such as places like dungeons, Cycling Road, or the Safari Zone, you could go anywhere without a load. Don't believe me? I'm going all the way from Meteor Falls to Victory Road right now, and there won't be a single loading screen. Hoenn, as a region, is designed more like an open world game would be. There's a desert, gigantic sea, volcanic area, cool islands and rainforests. You can move all the way between these landmarks and the towns in the world without a single loading screen. Now, you're naturally strung along a certain, fairly linear path in the Hoenn region from gym to gym. This is how Pokemon games are crafted. But there are certain opportunities where you can adventure. The region truly shines when you're let free and given the chance to explore. One of my favorite parts of the game is when you can decide to get to the 5th gym in a variety of ways. You can get back to Petalburg from Meteor Falls, or backtrack to Mr. Briny and take his boat. Later, when you get Surf, massive areas of the region open up. You're set free and given all sorts of routes and dungeons to explore. Most of the water routes are completely optional, and massive side quests like the Reggies are left up to the player to discover. There's tons of dive spots and hidden areas to find deep in the ocean routes of Hoenn. And now here come the remakes, which just teleport you from location to location. Some of the times the world opens up, you're given the option to, or in some cases, forced to teleport past everything. Yeah, I mean it's another option, just teleport, but really? Pokemon is about the adventure, especially the Hoenn region. Removing the adventure is just a disgrace to the original games and the series as a whole. I have no idea why anyone thought this idea was okay. Remember those loading screens I was talking about before? Yeah, they're all over the place in the remake. Moving from Oldale to Route 102, you load. Moving into the desert, load. Walk into Slateport Market, load. It's unbelievably lazy to have these obnoxious load screens plastered throughout the Hoenn region. The Pokemon franchise is no stranger to load screens. They're hidden behind gates. Look at the other Gen 3 games, Fire Red and Leaf Green. The gates are all still there because they were there in the original. You can walk past them with no clip and nothing changes. This is because Gen 3 utilized the power of the Game Boy SP in order to completely forego loading gates. Game Freak then designed a region around this technical feat and strung together massive oceans and routes without one load. Are load gates the worst thing ever? No. In fact, they're so pivotal to Pokemon games, they were given their own music and info panels in Gen 5. But ORAS doesn't even bother to include gates. They drop a jarring load screen that breaks immersion and is a harsh reminder that you're playing a game. Game Freak, if you couldn't recreate one of the greatest technical pillars in a game that came out 15 years ago, don't remake it. One of the most frustrating things is that it just feels like half the developers understood that the openness and freedom of Hoenn was one of its biggest themes and made soar, while the other half were completely ignorant to the freedom and allowed garbage like the load screens to be plastered throughout the world. Soaring is the perfect improvement to an open, free Pokemon world. You can fly all over the region and drop down wherever you've been, or fly to mysterious new islands of filler content. It's a little disappointing that a lot of islands ended up being similar and not too interesting, but the core concept behind soaring feels like the only aspect of ORAS that came close to following the original game's core design. Junichi Masuda claims development began about 2 years before release, but I definitely feel these games were just rushed. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire are remakes, obviously, but it feels like they didn't bother to try and differentiate them, and make the games feel like unique experiences. For example, let's compare Gen 3. Fire Red and Leaf Green hardly share any similar assets to Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. Overworlds, trainers, music, everything was changed. For comparison, between XY and Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, there's multiple shared character portraits, character designs, music, entire locations, and more. Not to mention every single Pokemon having the exact same models X and Y. I know making new poses for models is much more difficult than spriting, but even between Fire Red, Leaf Green, and Emerald, there's many Pokemon that have different sprites. Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire feel like deeply rushed games. There are many areas that were ripe for exploration that were completely ruined in Oros. Places such as Granite Cave, New Marvel, and the Sky Pillar are all completely uninteresting to explore. And we see areas like the Game Corner completely gimped to the original. One of the largest offenders is the Safari Zone, which is completely destroyed in the remake. The layout and the spirit of the Safari Zone were ruined. Just every aspect of Oros feels rushed. In the end, do I work for Game Freak? No. Maybe the design of the world and all this stuff I've been spewing weren't in Game Freak's mind at all. Maybe they had really good reasons for having the exact same grass as Pokemon XY, or completely foregoing the Game Corner. I really just don't know. At the end of the day, I, as a fan, was let down massively by these remakes. They're at the bottom end of my Pokemon tier list, and I have no desire whatsoever to play through these games ever again. Maybe in another 15 years, these games will finally get a true remake that follows in the footsteps of the original, and matches it from both a game design standpoint and technically.